The gun went off. It went through the bed of the Ranger and hit me in the top of my left leg, thigh area, kind of up near my groin almost. And it didn't hurt. I didn't feel any pain, which is crazy. You think if you get shot, it's going to hurt really bad. It didn't hurt me at all. So I kind of took a step back to see, did I really get hit, or is this bad, or am I going to be fine? Whatever. And when I did, my left leg didn't move. I tripped, fell, hit the ground, landed, this really muddy field, landed in the mud, and just immediately the adrenaline rush just ran over me. Like, it was right then I realized I had been shot. And basically every hunter's worst nightmare became my reality. That branch, Rohan, I really appreciate you getting me on your show today. Yeah, I live right here in Monroe, Louisiana, down here in the southern part of the U.S. I work as a marketing manager for a big agricultural company. But the reason I'm here on your show today is to talk about my story. And it's quite a crazy story. But no, I really appreciate you having me on your show here today.
So I appreciate you making time. Matt Branch, basically, let me just try and summarize it, is a person who had an unfortunate situation where his leg got blown off in unfortunate circumstances by his dog. And for a man who died for 45 minutes, for him to be able to sit here on this podcast and for many, many more years to come, an absolute thrill. But we'll get to that crazy day in December 2018. But before that, Matt, you're a big guy. I know you're sitting down, but you're 6'6", and you were you always big for your age, or did you have a growth spurt?
So I was always pretty much the tallest one in my class. And then about, I'd say, the 8th grade, I just shot up above everybody else, and nobody was going to catch me. So yeah, 6'6". And then, so I was big into sports growing up, and me being involved in sports allowed me to practice a lot. And through that practice, I was able to earn a scholarship to play at LSU. So I played football at Louisiana State University in Baton Rouge here in Louisiana, and played there for 4 years. But yeah, while I played there, I was recruited as a tight end in high school. I was about 6'6", 240. I used to run downfield, catch passes, score touchdowns, do all the fun stuff that, the girls like. And then when I got to college, I gained about 70 pounds, and they moved me to offensive line. And yeah, I probably kept most of the weight that I had gained at LSU. I guess over the last 6 years, but since that crazy day that, when I was shot, I've lost 100 pounds. So I'm 175 pounds now. And most people, when I tell them I played offensive line, they're like, no way, dude, you might've been the kicker or something like that. But anyway, yeah. So 110 pounds drop, which I got to admit, some of that was my leg. So that came off pretty quick and easy. It wasn't too tough for that to come off, but the rest of it was a lot of work and stuff.
I read while researching you, so you lost half your weight, but became twice the man. And I think I segue to the title of your book, and I probably should have started that way. The title of your book is "Nobody's Gonna Die Today," and I want to hear the story about how did you go about putting that as, and it's very appropriate in your situation, but how did you come up with that title?
So two ways. So number one, I didn't die that day, and I should have. I was given a second chance, and only through a miraculous act of God am I here able to talk to you today. And the other reason I came with that title actually goes back to my LSU football days. So our strength coach, his name was Tommy Moffitt. He's at Texas A&M now. He's the head strength coach for Texas A&M. And we would always have tough workouts in the summer, and he would yell at us and tell us to work harder and all this stuff. And he would always say at the very end, when we were, ready to give up, ready to quit, it's hot, tired, whatever, needed some water, he would say, "Don't worry, y'all, nobody's going to die out here today." And he would always tell us that. And we'd always look around at each other like, "I don't know, man, I think somebody might die out here today." And we had some close calls, we had some close calls over the years, but nobody ever died. And so when I was thinking about what to name this story, what to name this book, I had somebody, I had gotten to read it, and they suggested to me, say, hey, you need to name it that. So I was like, yeah, that would be a great name. So I reached out to Coach Moffitt and told him my idea, and he was like, heck yeah, man. Yeah, use my saying for sure. And then I got him to write the foreword for the book too. So yeah, that's kind of how it came about.
All right, now I want to talk about the reason why we're here and we're talking about it. So from what I could understand, that's December 28th, 3 days before Christmas in 2018. And I'll sit back and I'll let you say it because, you know, this is your story and you've been through it. But that's the day which was the last day where you had both your feet underneath you and
Yep.
back and hear as much detail as you want to go to till the time you got loaded up into the ambulance.
Yeah. So December 28th, 2018, like you said, it's a day that I'll never forget. My family will never forget. Many people in my community will just won't forget it because it was just such a crazy ordeal. But we were at Eagle Lake, Mississippi, which is, most people probably won't understand, but it's on the Mississippi River if you're looking at the map of the United States. So we were duck hunting, and I've been an outdoorsman, a hunter my entire life, and grew up around it, very comfortable handling shotguns and all that stuff. So we had plans to go duck hunting that morning, and we were going to split up and go to some different spots on the farm, and actually wrecked a four-wheeler and fell in the water and just had all these crazy things happen. So anyway, the whole group of us had gotten back together, and we were kind of talking about what we were going to do next. You know, we were trying to decide if we wanted to go try another spot or go back to the camp and cook breakfast. We didn't really know. And so we're standing around a Polaris Ranger, a side-by-side, and there's four of us, and we have a hunting dog, a black Labrador Retriever. So we're standing around loading all the gear up. I'm standing on the passenger side of the Polaris Ranger, and the dog, we were about to go. The dog had jumped in the back of the Ranger, was moving around, trying to find a spot to sit. And as the dog was moving around, we catch the sound of a muffled bang. And it caught our attention pretty quick. It's not a sound you want to hear standing around a Ranger with a bunch of guys. And I look down, and there's a hole in the Ranger bed about the size of a Coke can. And I look around at everybody else, and they're just staring at me because I'm standing right where the hole is. Basically, the gun went off. It went through the bed of the Ranger and hit me in the top of my left leg, thigh area, kind of up near my groin almost. And it didn't hurt. I didn't feel any pain, which is crazy. You think if you get shot, it's going to hurt really bad. It didn't hurt me at all. So I kind of took a step back to see, did I really get hit, or is this bad, or am I going to be fine? Whatever. And when I did, my left leg didn't move. I tripped, fell, hit the ground, landed, this really muddy field, landed in the mud, and just immediately the adrenaline rush just ran over me. It was right then I realized I had been shot. And basically every hunter's worst nightmare became my reality in an instant. And I remember screaming out, I've been shot, telling everybody. And I remember right then just praying to God. I was like, God, this isn't real. This is a dream, right? This did not just happen, but it was real. And they ran over to me, loaded me up in the Ranger, called 911, and just imagine the chaos we're all consumed in. Nobody really knows what to do. Nobody there's a medical professional. We're just a bunch of dudes duck hunting. And for some reason, they made the decision to drive me to the highway versus back to our camp, which, to explain it a little better, it's about the same distance to both places. And they could have thought, getting me to the camp, that we had some bandages, some supplies, something, help me out. But getting me to the highway actually got the ambulance to me faster, which got me to the hospital faster because that's where I had to be. There was no bandage that was going to help me at that point. So anyway, they take off going towards the highway. We get to the road, and they pull up and pull me out on the side of the road. And I remember just laying there, just helpless. I couldn't move, completely, I wasn't paralyzed, but I had no strength in my body because when the shot hit me, it hit my femoral artery and like destroyed it. So my blood pressure just plummeted. And I couldn't, I didn't have any control, anything. They had to help me do all, move or do whatever. So I'm laying there and seconds turn into minutes, and just the simple act of breathing. Like I couldn't catch my breath. It just felt like I was sucking air in. Nothing was coming in. I'd blow it out and it would just all go out. Like I could not catch my breath. And I'm just freaking out. And everybody's sitting there like trying to comfort me, trying to tell me to hang in there. And, I felt like I was going to fall asleep at any minute. And I just remember, like, you watch the movies and people are, don't fall asleep. Stay with me. Stay with me. That's like the only thing I could think to do then is just stay with them, stay awake. So the ambulance gets there about probably 25 to 30 minutes later after I'd been shot. And then that's when they realized how bad everything was, because they said blood just poured out of my boot like water from a pitcher. So my clothes were stained red from the chest down, basically. Like I had lost all my blood. I bled out at that point. I faintly remember just like a few of the curves and winding in the road, and then just curtains, just done. They told me I went into cardiac arrest on the way to the hospital, and they think I was in cardiac arrest somewhere around 45 minutes total that day. So that's basically the day, of what happened right there. And then there's a lot more that happened later on throughout the hospital and everything else. So
Thank you for sharing that. And I don't know how your emotions are, because you must have shared this quite a few times over the years. And I know you stood up in front of your church and you shared this as well. But hearing it, I've read it, but hearing it, it's still, obviously it's incredibly bad luck and a couple of centimeters here or there. But then obviously you're living the life you're living because of that incident. When you said you didn't experience pain, it was numbness at first. Did you experience pain when you were in the ambulance, or it was still a little bit where you were just like, what just happened?
no, I mean, it didn't hurt the whole time. It was just kind of a numb and tingling feeling the whole time. The pain that I experienced was more of like a spiritual, emotional pain. Just trying to come to grips with, that this was most likely going to be the end of my short life. And in that moment, and everybody will get there one day, but I'll be there for the second time. In that moment, you see the truth of your life. You see what you really live for, what you really cared about the most. And for me, I'll just say, like, I was not proud of what I saw that day. I lived for myself. I was a selfish person. So as far as experiencing pain physically, I didn't experience much, but spiritually, emotionally, I experienced a lot of pain. And that emotional, spiritual pain is what has, so.
Matt, were you awake in the ambulance, or what's your last recollection before you passed out?
Yeah, so I wasn't like awake in the ambulance. I was really kind of going in and out when they had loaded me up. And my last recollection is just laying there. And like I said, the curves and the winding in the road, you could kind of feel your body swaying a little bit. And it was just like a bright light overhead. And then all of a sudden just gone, like nothing, just black. That was basically my last recollection, was just kind of a bright light. I'm guessing the ambulance has bright lights in the roof, to work on the patients and stuff. But
Yeah. 12 days in a coma, 9 surgeries. What's your next memory of waking up? Do you know the timeline, or what's the first thing you can remember when you open your eyes?
yeah, so it was about 12 days total when I was in a coma. They had given me, it was 9 surgeries, like you said, and then they had given me 300 units of blood to keep me going through those 12 days, which is a whole lot of blood, like a scary amount. But the first thing I remember waking up seeing, it was my wife and my mom there in the hospital room. I was like, I was in the ICU room, and like I was on all kinds of drugs, meds. I mean, they had put me under many times just to like do surgeries and stuff on me, plus pain meds and whatever else they were giving me. I have no clue. But anyway, it was like a really trippy experience waking up. Like I was hallucinating really bad. Like I had believed. So while I was in a coma, I had all these crazy dreams, just wild dreams. Like I thought they were real when I woke up. I thought I had been living a life for like the last 2 weeks, basically. And so I wake up and I think I'm just came to the hospital just for like a quick surgery or something. And it took my family weeks to convince me, like, no, you've been here for 2 weeks now. And you've just been laying in this hospital bed. You have not been out living a life like you think you have, you know. But yeah, waking up and everything. And as the news started to kind of sink in on me, because they had to tell me, like, hey, you know, your leg has been amputated. You don't have a leg anymore, and you died, and you know, you were brought back, and all this stuff. And they just kind of fill me in on all the trauma that I had been through, and it was really surreal. And at first, the drugs kind of helped me cope with all that. But eventually, you know, you have to kind of wean yourself off the drugs to move through the hospital. And it just started to really take a toll on me. You know, mentally, you're in a really bad place when you realize like your life is completely different now. Everything you knew, all your hopes, your dreams, all that's just gone. It's erased, and you've got to start over and figure out how to do everything again. You know, physically, mentally, all of it. So, you know, that was and it's an ongoing battle. It's not like that just clicks and you get it all figured out. But you know, that's kind of how it felt waking up.
So Matt, from the time you got admitted, 12 days later you woke up. How long were you in the hospital before, I suppose, you went to rehab?
I was in the hospital for about 40 days total, and then I went to rehab for 2 weeks. So I believe it was like 54 days total. I was in the hospital or a rehab setting, which the rehab was basically a hospital. It was right next door to the University of Mississippi Medical Center where I was stationed at. So
and you got outfitted with a prosthetic limb, and I've read something which is a little bit cheerful, was you took to it right away, where, and maybe perhaps
yeah.
contributed to that, but I want to hear a little bit about how was your emotion when you realized at least you could walk rather than perhaps just being on a wheelchair?
Well, it was great, you know. So that's one of the biggest things is, you know, you start to think like, well, is it possible for me to walk again? And then you see videos of people with my same amputation, they're able to walk, and I'm like, all right, I think I can do this too. But you doubt yourself so much leading up to the process, and it takes. So whenever I got out of the hospital, so when I was able to actually get a prosthetic leg, it took probably 4 to 5 months for my body to heal, and you know, me to build up enough strength to be able to attempt to use one. So we had researched a lot trying to find the best possible situation for me to get a leg built, and ended up going with a guy named David Rodder. He's in Chicago, Illinois, and which is about a 12-hour drive from my house. So it's not like we were just picking the closest person. We like did our homework and found the best guy for my specific amputation, which is actually a hip disarticulation amputation. So which is basically I've lost my entire left leg. So my amputation is at the hip level. So I'm missing my hip joint, my knee, and everything, you know, below the hip, basically knee, foot. So anyway, he's a specialist in that specific amputation. Went up there and he coached me a lot throughout the whole process. You know, what I needed to work on, how much weight I needed to lose, and I was very strict. And that kind of goes back to my football playing days. We had all this exercise and diet experience, and I just kind of went back to all that and just had to kind of reinvent it as I went for me in my new circumstance. And got up there, and he got to work and built me a prosthetic. It's like 4 feet long. My prosthetic is almost as tall as my wife is. It's crazy. It's taller than my kids, and it weighs about 15, a little over 15 pounds, I'd say, total. And then he walks out. So he has like a workshop in the back of his office, and like all his patients sit out in the lobby. And I'm sitting on the couch, and he walks out holding it, and I'm like, dude, there's no way. How am I going to walk with this thing? So I strap it on, and he's kind of telling me like, okay, this is what you got to do. You got to stand tall, keep your shoulders back, chest up, look forward, don't look down at the ground. I'm like, I'm gonna look down. Like, I don't know what this thing's doing. It does not feel like a leg. It feels like just a piece of metal dangling from your body. And it's like, okay, I've got to walk on this. I've got to trust this thing. And so he kept talking me through it. And eventually I was, walking back and forth in some parallel bars, and just kept working at it. And it just kind of started to click. And then I walked outside of the parallel bars, and I had, he had 2 assistants there, and they were like walking beside me, just like if I started to fall, they could try to catch me. And I just started walking across the room, like all this on day 1. And he could not believe it. He was like, I've never seen anybody pick it up that fast, and it's not all me. It's, I was blessed, and, I'm an athletic person. So I've got a lot of people to thank, and God to thank, obviously, for giving me the ability to kind of pick it up and run with it that fast. So
how was your emotional state once you were on your own, or you were able to walk? I'm assuming that would have felt a sense of independence, or
yeah,
just
so much joy at first, just like, I can walk again. I can live somewhat of a life like I thought I should be able to live, and I have this ability. And at first, I would say I was ecstatic, very glad, like just super excited that I could walk again, because that was like my whole goal for 4 months. Was like, I've got to figure out how to walk again, not just for me, but for my family, for my children, all of that. And but there's a big but there. Walking is great, and I love it, and it really helped me a lot. But man, it's nowhere near having 2 legs and being able to get around that way. It's just not anywhere close still. My amputation it's very difficult. And so, yeah, at first it was a lot of joy, high fiving my whole family. We're sending videos. Everybody was fired up. And it just takes some time and really get some experience. It's like, okay, what's my ability actually going to be like with the prosthetic? And it's great. I would say I'm maxed out for what a person with my circumstance and amputation can do. I've probably achieved as high as anybody can, but like I said, it's nowhere near having 2 actual legs. And after some time, you start to kind of fall back into, you put all your hope in this one thing, like this one thing is going to change my life. It's going to make me who I want to be. And eventually, if that is not in the right thing, then it's going to let you down, and it had let me down. But new life, it always starts in the dark, right? And that's kind of where my transformation journey from a spiritual perspective really kind of kicks in at that point.
As you mentioned, there must be so many limitations which you must face on a daily basis, and how you maneuver your life and you work around it. And I guess you can sometimes also look half empty rather than half full. It's only human to feel that way. But talk to me a little bit about the time you decided to write the book. And obviously, I read somewhere, which is crazy to me, was you were a bit shy to share it, because for me, it's like this needs to be spread much more. Like Matt Brand, your people should be more aware. But the fact that what was the reason why you weren't like forthcoming, or did you still didn't feel comfortable?
So a couple of things I would say. So yeah, how the book came about, same thing. Like, I was in the dark, searching for meaning, searching for purpose. Like, what am I going to do with my life now that it's so different than what I had planned? And that's when I had a crazy experience. The only way I can explain it is it was just a spiritual experience. And I don't know, it was like something divine came over me. I came home and I had been thinking about, writing my book, writing my story down. I didn't know if it would be a book. I didn't know. I just wanted to get it out. And so I came home and I sat down at my desk and I started typing on my computer, and I typed for 4 days straight. And I wouldn't stop. I was like a madman. My wife was like, "What's wrong with you?" I was like, "I don't know. Something's coming out of me. Like, I just got to get it out." And after 4 days, I looked up and I had the book that you've read. That's what came out in 4 days, just like that. And yeah, I doubted it. Like, I was like, "There's no way this is any good." I was like, "People aren't going to want to read this, you know." And what came out of me, it wasn't like the story and what I thought other people wanted to hear. It was the story that I tell myself, you know. And so I sat on it. I just sat on it for like 3 years. I was like, I don't think anybody's going to want to read this. I'm definitely not a writer. I'm not good at this, yada, yada. But man, eventually it just kept wearing on me. Like, nope, just do something with it. Just get it out there and see what happens. Just trust me with it. I keep hearing this from God. Just trust me with it. Quit relying on yourself. Quit thinking you got it, and just trust me. And I put it out, and man, it just like it exploded, and people, my community picked it up and they started reading it, and then they would tell somebody, and then they would reach out and tell somebody. And like I never did any marketing for it. I never bought an ad, none of that. I just put it on my mediocre social media following, and people just started reading it, and it just started spreading word of mouth, and then I've been able to share my story many times, like this, like you're allowing me to do here today through podcasts, and then I speak at events all the time, and I've just been able to kind of share it and spread it that way. And then, the book kind of feeds the speaking, and the speaking feeds the book. They kind of feed off each other, and who knows where it'll end up going.
When I saw the cover of your book, and I'm a reader, I love reading it, but and I would argue anybody who sees the cover of your book would gravitate towards it, and what a title to go along with it. And obviously, I'm a football fan, so that resonated.
Yeah.
Such a incredible story, and for me, everybody can have their own takeaways from this one as well. But for me, it's also the will to live, and it's very interesting as well that when you got shot, and obviously you're here today, you wouldn't have your daughter. This is too. How old's your daughter now?
She's 3 now, so yeah. She came along. She's a 2020 COVID baby, so she came along in 2020. So
there were a lot of babies happening during COVID. So yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, exactly. So there's always purpose and reason, and sometimes it just like when you mentioned something happened for you to just write for 4 days straight, and
Yeah.
we have in our life where sometimes we act on it, and other times we ignore it. But I'm really glad that you wrote the book, and I hope that more and more people are aware of it. So what's keeping you busy now? I know you have a full-time job, and
so life right now is really, number one, being a dad, running around. Like, we were at a soccer game last night with my son Barrett. He's 6 now, and just trying to stay present, stay available to my kids as much as possible. And then obviously my work kind of opened up with that. Work for a big agricultural company and the marketing with them. And then my third job, I guess, would be, my book and speaking about it, and doing different things. And it's all turned into, quite an enjoyable experience, not one that I would have written out and mapped out for my own life, but maybe somebody else knows me better. Somebody upstairs knows me a little bit better than I know myself. So,
Yeah. So Nobody's Gonna Die today. It's been out since, was it June 2023?
About 10 months. Yeah, about 10, 11 months now. So.
And do you have people who still like write in or message you, or somebody who, I'm sure that must be a thrill where it motivated somebody to, pick up their life perhaps?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I've got yeah, people reach out to me all the time about it. And I've got it on, the easiest way to get it's Amazon and then Audible for any audiobook listeners. I have the Audible version available too. And then you can also get it like barnesandnoble.com is another good place to get it. Like I said, never planned on being a writer, none of that, but it just kind of happened. So
So we'll be doing a few giveaways from our end from Audible. We'll have more details to share in our social media as well as on the YouTube channel. But I'm thrilled to be a small part of your incredible journey. Matt Branch, any final words? But for me, an absolute privilege to have you. Thank you for making time. So forward to you for the last word.
yeah, no, I really appreciate the opportunity for you to, think enough of my story and my book to want to share it with your audience. And for anybody out there who may be struggling, who may be going through something right now, like the one piece of advice that really helped me is like, I promise you, you're not alone in your struggle. Like somebody else has faced something similar to you, could be in a circumstance similar to you right now. And you've got to have community, you've got to have people around you to help build you up. So if you're going through something, don't hide it, reveal it, let the light shine on it, and the light can always turn the darkness into something special. So
Perfect. Thank you, Matt Branch.